In this video, we'll be covering the Github MCP for repo automation and PR reviews, Puppeteer MCP for browser automation, Figma MCP for converting designs into code, Sentry MCP for debugging errors directly in Warp, and Context7 MCP for fetching up-to-date documentation. I'll walk you through how to set each one up, the JSON configs you'll need, and real-world examples from my own projects. Let's get started. The GitHub MCP server lets Warp agents directly read from and write to your GitHub repos. To set it up, you'll first need a GitHub personal access token. Here's how you get one. Go into your GitHub account, head into settings, then developer settings, and click on personal access tokens. When you create the token, enable everything under repo, and also enable read user. I like to keep the scopes minimal so the AI doesn't have too much write access. That way there's less risk of it accidentally committing changes or overwriting something important. Once you've got your token, head into Warp, open up the MCP panel from the command palette, and click Add. Paste in the JSON config for the GitHub MCP server, drop in your access token that you just got, and then hit save, and now you'll see all the available endpoints. And now that it's set up, I'm going to show you two real workflows that I use all the time. The first one is summarizing all open PRs. So here I'm inside Warp's own internal GitHub repo. I can run a prompt that asks the agent to summarize the discussion and key unresolved questions in all the open pull requests. Behind the scenes, the MCP server calls list pull request to get the PRs, then get pull request comments, and get pull request reviews to pull all the details. It compiles everything into a clean summary, and best of all, it gives me clickable links to each PR so I can jump right in and review. The second workflow is creating issues from to-dos. So for this one, I'm using a saved prompt in my Warp drive, and it tells the agent to find every to-do comment in the repo and create a GitHub issue for it. The Warp agent is going to scan the code base, find all my to-dos in my code, and then automatically call create issue from the GitHub MCP server for each one. When it's done, I'll have a clickable list of all my new issues, all with the original to-do text and a link back to the code. And both of these workflows saved me about 20 to 30 minutes each compared to doing them manually. The Puppeteer MCP server is great for automating anything in the browser. So to set it up, open up Warp's command palette, type in MCP, and open up the MCP panel. Click Add and paste in the JSON config for Puppeteer. Hit Save, and you'll see endpoints like Puppeteer Navigate, Fill, Screenshot, and Evaluate. For this demo, I'm also going to be showing off Warp's voice input feature, so I can hit the mic icon and speak my prompt. Can you go to Amazon, search for white t-shirt woman, scrape the results, so the titles, the prices, and the links, and then open each product link and summarize the product reviews. And then I want you to give me a recommendation for which shirt to buy based on the combination of the pricing and the review quality. Warp is going to transcribe what I just said using Whisper. Once I run my prompt, Puppeteer takes over. So it's going to navigate to Amazon, it's going to find and fill the search bar, capture product data using screenshots and JavaScript selectors, and then it's going to click into each product and scrape review content. You'll see I have Amazon and Warp open side by side here. I'm not touching anything, so Puppeteer is doing this entire workflow autonomously. And at the end, it's going to give me a ranked list of white shirts and recommends me the cozy t-shirt, which is $8, 4.5 stars, and seems to have good fit and soft fabric from customer reviews. So the Puppeteer MCP is perfect for any kind of product research, competitive analysis, or repetitive web scraping that you don't want to do manually. The Figma MCP server lets Warp agents pull design data from Figma and turns it into code scaffolding. To set it up, go into your Figma account, click your profile picture, go to Settings, Security, and generate a new personal access token. Give it full read access. In Warp, open up the MCP panel, paste in the Figma JSON config, drop in that access token you got, and hit Save. For this demo, I'm going to use the design for Warp's redesigned homepage. And in Figma, I'm going to go ahead and select the group I want, right-click, and then choose Copy Link to Selection. Now going into Warp, I've stored a prompt in Warp Drive called Figma Mockup. It tells the agent to recreate the design in code and stipulates things like keeping the original sections, spacing, font sizes, colors, and general best practices. When I run it, the MCP server will call get Figma data and download Figma images, and then it starts to generate the HTML and CSS for the entire layout. On screen, you're going to see it fetching the design data, generating code files one by one, and then previewing the final result in the browser. If I switch back and forth between the design and the generated file, it's surprisingly close. The header, the feature cards, and the code generation section are all there. It is missing a few details like the gradients and the footer, but this is an excellent starting point. I find this to be a huge time saver for PMs, designers, or devs who just want to skip the boilerplate and get to iteration faster. The Sentry MCP server lets your agent pull live error data from Sentry. So for this example, I'm using the Empower Plant repo, which is Sentry's official demo project. It's a fake e-commerce plant store with a React front end and multiple backend options built with real bugs for testing. To set it up, I'm pasting in the Sentry JSON config into Warp's MCP panel and hitting save. I'm going to go ahead and run the app locally and then visit the website, which triggers a couple of errors. I'm going to go into the Sentry dashboard, click on the type error that I want to fix, and copy the link to this issue. Then I'm going to prompt Warp to diagnose the Sentry error, as well as tell me things like show where it's coming from in the code and create a fix. The Sentry MCP server is going to call getIssueDetails, which pulls the stack trace from Sentry, and then Warp is going to scan my codebase. It actually finds the issue, which was essentially just calling the toUpperCase function on an array, and then even creates a simple code change to fix it. Without the Sentry MCP server, the AI wouldn't have been able to access those authenticated error details, which means that it would have had less context and weaker fixes. With this, I get an exact diagnosis and a working patch in one step. And finally, the Context7 MCP server gives Warp agents real-time access to documentation from across the web. Here I'm using it to update my Share Brew Files project, which is an older Astro site I built a couple of years ago. The prompt is pretty simple, which is just to update the Astro project to follow the latest best practices. The MCP server calls getLibraryDocs to pull the latest Astro 5 docs. Warp then applies updates across the project, like updating my Tailwind import syntax, improving my TypeScript configuration, optimizing my build settings, and adding better accessibility rules. You'll see it pulling in the Astro docs and making the code changes across multiple files. This saves me hours of reading changelogs and blog posts just to find out what has changed in the last couple of years. I find this especially useful when reviving old projects or migrating to a new framework version and wanting to make sure I'm still following the latest standards. And that is 5 real examples of using MCP servers inside of Warp. The best part is that once you set them up, these workflows become part of your toolkit. You can find the links to all the JSON, GitHub repos, and documentation for the MCP servers in the description of this video. I hope you found this helpful, and comment what MCP servers you want us to cover next.